Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's CC-Webinar.live keynote and panel discussion session, and thank you for joining. We also would like to thank Batelco for sponsoring today's session. And now I would like to pass on the microphone to Eric to introduce the keynote speaker and later on to moderate the panel. For audience, if you're joining us remotely, please do use the chat box option throughout the session. And that's all from my side. Eric, over to you.
Thank you very much, Laura, and welcome everybody all around the world. And happy to see you all here or live at the GCCM Lisbon and or virtually around the world. So we're going to talk today about the new business models to meet the cable future digital demand and the role of the data centers in the region to meet the demand. But before I do, I'm very honored and proud to have 5 panelists next to me, and I'll give them a quick word to introduce themselves. So Hassan, over to you. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Hello, everyone. Hassan Zainal here from Batelco, Bahrain. I'm the head of international capacity at Batelco, part of Batelco Global Business Unit in Bahrain. I look after the international capacities in Batelco, both operations and development, handling submarine terrestrial capacities, consortium arrangements, and so on. I also do look after the product and services portfolio under the business unit itself. So we do offer a variety of flavors of products, ranging from connectivities, layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, data centers, internet exchanges, and you name it, either being traditional telco services or the emerging ones as well.
Thank you very much, Hassan, and then thank you. We're going to listen to you later when you do your keynote presentation, where you want to share the strategy from Batelco with us. And thank you, of course, Batelco, for sponsoring this webinar session. So let's go to Germany. Jens, welcome.
Thank you. Hello, Eric. Hello, everybody out there and everybody who was in Lisbon in these days. I hope you enjoy the event. I think the first one live since 80 months or so. So yeah, I'm Jens. I'm managing director of New Telco, a company based in Germany. We are mainly focused on co-location and data center service and carrier neutral interconnections, physical interconnection, as well logical interconnection in our premises, and we're offering a wide range of managed network services to our customers as well. We are mainly focused on the carrier business, so I'm sure many of the listeners knows us from our services in Frankfurt. Yeah, and thanks for inviting. I'm very pleased to be a panelist today.
Thank you so much, Jens. And over to Adam.
Hi there. Sorry I couldn't be with you today. I would love to be out there in Portugal. I'm really looking forward to doing meetings again once the UK stops us and stops quarantining us. I'm Adam Godwin. I run the wholesale and OTT business of Telstra in EMEA. And we do a lot of business with lots of carriers. We have a lot of subsea assets, mainly in Asia, but some Asia, Europe, and you know, a big interest in today's topic. We have some data center assets too, including one where I'm sitting here in London.
Thank you, Adam. And from Adam, we go to Andy Seaborn.
Thanks, Eric. Andy Bax, Chief Operating Officer of Seaborn. Delighted to be on this panel. Nice to be on the panel again. I would have loved to have been doing this live, but we're not quite there yet, but hopefully soon. So I'm Chief Operating Officer of Seaborn Networks. We deliver capacity and IP services across the Americas, predominantly up and down the East Coast, but also expanding out now to other parts of the region and delivering our services across the region as a whole. So looking forward to the conversation. Nice to see some faces I've seen before and some new ones as well. So can't wait.
Thank you, Andy, and welcome to you. And last but not least, I think we go to Rome, to the beautiful Italy. Giuseppe.
Hi, Eric. Hello, everybody. Thank you, and happy also to be here with all these colleagues. I'm heading the product management function for backbone infrastructure solutions in Sparkle. Sparkle is a global carrier. We have a full-fledged of product and solutions spanning from data, mobile, voice, and ICT services. We are both actually operating in data center and in submarine space, specifically in submarine. I can say proudly that we have been laying and operating cables now almost for 1 century, as our predecessor Italcable deployed one of the first transatlantic cable between Rome and Buenos Aires.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Giuseppe, and also welcome to you. So, ladies and gentlemen out there, it's a full stack of very senior people around the world gathered here at the virtually on this hybrid event in Lisbon. So welcome to everybody, and thanks again to Batelco and all the panelists. So Hassan, may I invite you to share, let's say, your keynote presentation with us?
Yes, by all means.
Thank you. So the floor is yours, and you can take it away.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk about Batelco Global and share some insights and details about Batelco itself. Before that, I'd just like to point out, it's not something new to most of the people in this webinar, and I think we all know and we can see the shift in trends when it comes to the cable or submarine cable industry, where we see the hyperscalers like Google or Facebook or the Amazon investing more and more in the cables itself rather than buying from the traditional telecom providers, which makes more sense, I think. I believe to connect their own data centers and connectivity requirements, it makes it more cost effective for them, and it's something that we all have to face as change that mindset. It's not a telecom provider. Providers do not dominate the market anymore, and we should put our hands together to make it a win-win situation between the telecom providers and the hyperscalers themselves, which I think mainly the subject of this webinar revolves around that shift in trends and the new business models. Talking about Batelco a bit, Batelco was established in 1981 in Bahrain. However, we go back to the 40s, where we were under the cable and wireless name. So yeah, today Batelco operates in multiple geographies, around 13 to 14 geographies. We do own OpCos all around the globe. We are focused in the Middle East, where Bahrain is the headquarters of Batelco Group. However, we do own companies under the brand name of Shure in UK, Channel Islands, Isle of Man. We have acquired cable and wireless islands operations a few years ago and operate OpCos also in South Atlantic, Nico Garcia, the Falkland Islands. We do own a company in Maldives called Dirago, and as well in Yemen, Sabafon. A couple of years ago, we struck a joint venture with DO in UAE, and we have a joint venture called ARC, Advanced Regional Communication Solutions, which I believe a lot of people heard about it. It was launched in Capacity Europe in 2019, actually. We do deal with a lot of key partners, strategic partners, being technology providers or global carriers and regional providers. I believe Adam and Giuseppe, we go back in history a lot. Especially, Giuseppe, we have a very long-lasting relationship with Telecom Italia as well. Moving into our presence in the globe, as I said, we are very focused in the Middle East. However, our global network spans around the globe. We have quite a good presence in Europe and Singapore as well. Our network is seamlessly connected and gives us the privilege to serve our customers and partners, giving them different flavors and connectivity types. You name it, the traditional layer 1 IPLCs or layer 2, layer 3. Big highways established between such POPs and networks, either being used for Batelco's own use or be serving our good friends or our carriers or our partners as well. In terms of how Bahrain is connected to the outside world, our first cable, submarine cable, goes back to 1998. Actually, there are a lot of, I would say, old cables that were there during the telegraph days, which are now all obsolete and have been decommissioned. The first cable, which is called fiber optic Gulf, is a cable that was established between the Arabian Gulf countries. It connects Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and UAE. It's a consortium-based cable. So again, crossing the causeway that connects Bahrain to Saudi, we are interconnected with all carriers in Saudi, and gives us the chance and the highway to connect beyond Saudi, crossing Jordan or Iraq or Kuwait, or using the submarine routes from Jeddah going towards Europe. Falcon and GBI, I think we all know the capabilities of these cables. We are the landing party of both cables, as well as having huge investments and IRUs on those cables. Our recent launch of what we call BGN, Batelco Gulf Network, is our recent terrestrial cable system that connects all the countries in the Arabian Gulf. It's managed and owned and operated by Batelco solely. And we have invested in a Sienna DWDM solution and can carry as a design up to 17 terabit of traffic. It's not only connected to the countries themselves, but we do operate with all telecom providers in all the countries. So as you may be aware that, you know, in Qatar, there are Vodafone and Ooredoo, for example. So we interconnect with both carriers as well, and similarly in UAE as well. Knowing the importance of data centers and how the data center is coupled with the submarine projects. In the past few years, we've launched 2 new data centers. These 2 data centers are Tier 3 design and certified. Certified by Uptime. These 2 new data centers are in additional to an old one, or not quite an old one, but it's a telco grade data center. They form an ecosystem of data centers which are connected seamlessly with an access to all international cables that are coming inside Bahrain, which is a perfect environment to host carriers, CDNs, internet exchange providers. All the tenants are there and are welcome to be there. And as I said, the seamless connection that the metro network provides today with the access to the international connectivity makes it a very excellent proposition, I would say. We also have launched our first data center, which is under the brand name of Global Zone. Global Zone is a carrier neutral data center that was launched a couple of years ago. Again, it's located inside one of the data centers I showed in the previous slide. What we mean in the carrier neutral data center, carriers are either local operators in Bahrain or international carriers can be hosted in the data center. They are welcome to use their own capacities if they want, or they can ask Batelco to facilitate that connectivity for them as well. It's a growing data center. In the past few years, we had a lot of interest. A lot of local operators are hosted there as well as tier 1 providers are hosted there. What makes it more beautiful, if I may jump to the next slide, is the presence of Manama Internet Exchange. Manama Internet Exchange is an internet exchange launched by Batelco, but it's being operated by Amsterdam IX. So we have a partnership with Amsterdam IX to run and operate the internet exchange itself. Now, I proudly say that it is the fastest growing internet exchange in the Middle East region. The couple of years since its inception, we are hitting around 400 gig of traffic. That's in 2 years. Might not be a lot compared to Europe, but it means a lot to us and comparing these numbers in our region. You could look at Manama Internet Exchange and Peering DB, but we do host Amazon. We have a lot of local operators within the country itself. Most of the regional operators in the Middle East are connected. The Ooredoo's, Zain, STC Group is there, Saudi, Bahrain, and Kuwait as well. So yeah, we're proud to be a facilitator and a point of exchange of traffic and bringing more content closer to our customers, which makes a big difference in terms of user experience. And we're hoping to see more people there as well. And Eric, by this is my last slide. So I'll leave the floor to you. Thank you very much for your time. And yeah, over to you, Eric.
Thank you very much, Hassan, and thank you for sharing your keynote presentation with us and everybody around the world. So, Hassan, you, if I may ask, you mentioned in your last slide the Manama IX and your cooperation with the Dutch guys, the AMSIX. What has been, let's say, the real advantages, not so much of this partnership, but rolling out, let's say, the Manama IX?
Yeah, Eric, the key driver today, first of all, you have a data center, you need to make it richer in terms of, what do you have in that data center? Now, Internet Exchange is a key driver and attraction for tenants, for cables, for content provider, hyperscalers to be there. Let's not forget, Amazon has established its region in the Middle East in Bahrain. And we worked so hard to bring Amazon to Bahrain. It's a win-win situation. It was a win-win situation for Bahrain and AWS. Now, bringing Amazon IX as a brand name and their experience, coupled with our ambitions as Bahrain to make Bahrain as a hub, and spreading I would say the good things, this region is a bit closed region as compared to Europe and the Middle East. So it's a challenging thing to convince people that peering helps you with your customer experience, helps you with making things better for your customers, more cost effective. So the challenge was in the beginning on how to convince people to come to that exchange and explaining the value out of that exchange. And we were quite successful to make that. We put a lot of efforts in that, and we managed to bring the big names, the big people, and they saw the value out of it. And I think it's something that this region is opening up more and more towards peering and bringing content closer to eyeballs.
Okay, well, congratulations with that, Hassan. Thank you very much for sharing your presentation. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about the new business models to meet the cable's future digital demand and the role of the data centers in the region to meet the future demand, actually. So, again, I'm welcoming the other panelists to the session, and let's immediately go into it. And if I may start with Andy, consumption of bandwidth is enormously increasing by what we see. So where do you see is the correlation between the subsea cable operators and the data centers, and how do they meet each other's demand? Or what is your take on that one, Andy?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. I think it's it's been a very interesting, what is it now, 18 months, right? Explosive demand growth. I think one of the positives that's come out of this period we're still going through in some places is the increased cooperation between what we would call ourselves as traditional like operators, although none of us are traditional anymore, data centers, and the content owners, whether they're hyperscalers, CDNs, media companies. There's been an awful lot of cooperation over the last 18 months, especially the last 12 months probably. And I think there that the alignment is around, and Hassan made the point really well. It's all around getting content closer to eyeballs and users and increasing that experience for them, and a recognition, especially over the last period, that it's not just about gaming and watching movies. It's now an integral part of everybody's life. So enabling a further reach of that content, irrespective of what it is, deeper into the networks is really important. So where excuse me, where as subsea cable operators, we used to be predominantly concerned around hitting a pop in a major city and then having basically customers come to us. We are now more and more expanding beyond those major population zones, going further and further into whether they're regional entities, small carrier data centers or carrier neutral data centers, but just reaching further and further out with the core capacity. It's no longer just good enough to land in a cable station. It's no longer just good enough to land in the first pop you can get to, nice and easy for the subsea guy. You got to reach further and further into the network, and that means much more cooperation locally and partnering locally. And I would say that's one of the key in regions like the Americas, and very in some places in the Americas, very, very similar to what Hassan was describing in the Middle East. That's a challenge. It's a challenge to encourage that partnership, because local operators have done very well over the years in terms of securing markets and maintaining market share. But they are all now realizing that yes, we need to bring in more content, more capacity, more capabilities. So I think that's the key. Is yes, we are all very good at working together, and we've done that really well over the last 18 months. I think we work very well as a community as carrier community with the data center operators. I think we're learning now that we have to work equally well with regional and local operators to distribute that content even further into the network.
Okay, thank you. Talking about operators and a global operator like, for instance, the Telstra. Adam, how do you see it? Do you see that you can, because you have both. I mean, you own both. You have data centers and you have your own cables. So, but also with external parties. How does it work, and can you relate, let's say, to each other's, let's say, demand, and how is it working?
Oh, we can certainly relate to each other's demand. Demand has been such a crazy period. Our IP network last year, in about 4 months, grew 79%.
Did it blow up?
It didn't. It stayed strong, and the engineering guys here did a fantastic job. We managed to help a lot of customers with that demand, but there are real challenges in our subsea network. I mean, right now we have a very strange period in terms of the economics. Cable prices going up rather than down. We're used to giving more and more bandwidth and doing more and more as an industry for often less or the same amount of money. And we've learned to live with those challenges, but there are some different ones that are heading our way at the moment. And we can certainly see, there are certain paths where, the cables are, we can't see an upgrade path for a system, or there's a restriction there. And we're working very hard with our vendors and partners to address that. But the reality is that in the short term, there could well be some shortages. So people have got to start planning very well for things in certain paths. In terms of data centers, I think everyone's talked about it, but it's about key partnerships. We work with the content providers very closely. We have relationships with 11 or 12 of the biggest content providers in the world, but we work right down through probably the top 50 OTTs, and we work very closely with them, and they work very closely with us. And I think it's that partnership that's key. This isn't about edge today, but it is about getting closer and closer to the end consumers. everybody is doing more from their homes than they were 18 months ago.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Adam. Giuseppe, you as well as a global leader operator as well, having, let's say, all the disciplines in your portfolio. What is your take on it? Do you see the same thing that Adam is seeing?
Yeah, I would definitely support the let me say, the elements that Adam already highlighted. Back to your question about new business model, what I would definitely highlight as a paradigm element shift that we are more and more facing with new initiatives that we see in the radar screen is the concept in the submarine space, is the concept of the open cable. So we are moving from the historical, traditional, either, let me say, consortium approach where you have 20, 15, 25, 30 carriers, each one with its own landing, with a sort of closed or semi-closed approach, or a private, purely private. I build the cable, I own the cable. So there is a business shift, there is a technology shift which has helped this switch or is helping this change, which is SDM. So now cables can sustain a relevant number of fibers. In few years, we move from 4, 6, let me say, fiber pair. Now the standard is 16 in terms of maximum capability, but we are working on cables with 20 and even 24 fiber pairs. Mm-hmm. So this means that you have multi-ownership, multi-tenant. Is not anymore as consortium that on few fiber pair, we have to share the capacity. Mm-hmm. It's that each one has one or even more fiber pair. This changed completely the picture because you have your total autonomy in designing, building, upgrading, technology choices, and so on. And this has, so multi-fiber, multi-tenant, this has also implication then on the data center, on the landing elements, because multiple interests, multiple tenants, of course, want to have an open environment where to land the cable. That's, of course, a natural evolution. So,
thank you. Now going to pure data center, Jens, how is that cooperation then between you, the subsea cables, and the bandwidth anyway? Is it are you convenient in your role, or where do you think that having both the demand, where are the challenges?
Yeah, so first of all, the cooperation is key, and the cooperation, I agree, kind of more agree what Hassan was saying in his presentation. You need a close, you need a data center as close as possible to an IX, to any IX. If you don't have it, it's very difficult to sell your space or your services in that data center if you don't have a rich connection, which you will gain with a good connectivity into a or more IXs in the various regions. And I think that is also the challenge if we're thinking about landing stations or where the sea cable lands and the data centers more outside in the region, is the role of the IX. So are we able, that could be, is, you know, like Germany, the KICS is, you know, it's a profit organization, as not many IXs are, and they are doing it pretty aggressively, growing into different markets and into different areas, and they're building a lot of IXs, right? And they are going very close, coming closer to the sea, to the landing station, which is an important step if you think about further data centers, because, you know, today an IX is an aggregator for a data center build. If you look about Frankfurt, Frankfurt is the biggest IX in the world with the DKICs and interaction, and logically Frankfurt became number 2 in the data center build. So the data center boom has not is still unbroken in Frankfurt, and you see, you know, still an unbelievable number of new data centers and power commitments that is built. So and that was also for us a driver to what are we going to do? We as a small medium enterprise company mainly focus on carriers, and we support their with our services their business in Frankfurt or in Western Europe. So we were thinking about our own business models. What do we need to do? Where shall we grow, and what are the best areas, and how do we get our data centers more out into the region? Not just, I would not say edge data center, but as we see, and also Hassan showed its first slide in his presentation about the tech giants. It's unbelievable. Next to, they own the cable, they build their own data centers, but they're absorbing enormous power and space in any other data centers. And most of the large data center providers are focused on their hyperscalers, right? So we thought, okay, then there's more. So and therefore we have bought an own building, and we are building now our own data center, still in the Frankfurt Rhine-Main area, but it's at the end of the Rhine-Main area. Of course, the connectivity was key, so it will become an DKIX enabled node, because without, you're not in the business for sure, because therefore we will be able to bring the content closer to the edge or closer to our customers or potential customers. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. No, because even in Frankfurt, as you mentioned, is actually not number 2, let's say, as a data center city in the world, but having the most expensive power in there.
This is a huge issue, which is a political discussion we are having, and we are also, as New Telco, we are part in some work groups trying to push politics, but it's heavy, as you can imagine. But Germany, it's very aggressive to exit from the engines that run on gas.
Yeah.
Right. But if you I think if you buy 1 liter of fuel, it's 75 or 80% is tax, right? Yeah. So if they push it out, they need something where they will get the money from. So this is why there's so much tax meanwhile on the power. So it's a problem. Yeah. So also for us, that was again, for us important to move a little bit further out. We may save a few cents on the kilowatt per hour, which again is a positive signal for our customers, because this is becoming a huge cost factor, because even as we all saw it through in the last 18 months, the power consumption has been increased enormously. And at any planning stage you are, if you think about when you were planning a data center a couple of years ago, you were probably planning with an average of 3.5 kilowatt per rack. So, and then but it was not enough. Then you were planning maybe with 7, and it's not enough. And now we are planning with data center that can offer up to 10 kilowatt per rack. And all of a sudden we see requests from customers who ask for 20. So you see, we are always behind the curve in a way. But nevertheless, right, so we think that this is the right thing for us. And by the way, what is another driver for us to build that data center? There is a lot of GDPR discussion in Germany, globally, because we know that many companies are not GDPR conform. Yeah, they will run into an issue, and the fines can be very, very expensive for companies. So what we are pushing also is, we build an own data center, we push it a little bit into the edge. We want to get the content closer to the customer, and we want to support let's say IT made in Germany. So because that data center that we build, it's not to compare with the large ones, right? There's a plan in Frankfurt, or not in Frankfurt, in Hanau, city next to Frankfurt, 180 megawatt of power. Wow. So we are 5 megawatt, right? So, but we have a very unique one. I'd like to add that. we have a tier 4 power supply in the data center, which is very rare in Germany and in Europe.
Cool, thank you. So moving on, Hassan, and already Adam was tipping on this with regards to the content providers. So what can you tell us about addressing the today's and future market demands, and how do new partnership models, which we see occurring between the cable operators and the content providers?
Well, it's a very interesting partnership model discussions that goes on these days. I think Giuseppe touched upon having an open cable systems. And we could forget about the traditional I land the cable, so I own the asset and I own the access. Again, this region, Middle East, is transforming towards being more open, but it will take some time for that to happen. You have people which are back in the days were against the idea of having hyperscalers coming into this region. But that mindset is shifting now. We in Batelco could see that shift happening, and we are really embracing that shift, honestly. It will take some time to form a win-win situation, business model or partnership between the telecom provider and the hyperscalers and the big giants or tech giants. At the end, we should look at the best interest for the end consumer or the user. What would make that value that it's a good thing for you, it's a good thing for the consumer at the end of the day, and you should not resist the change happening in the market. I'm very optimistic on the future changes happening in our region, at least. We are embracing that change, as I said. That changes in the business models is, it's a challenge. As Adam said, the economics do not make any sense these days, to be honest. The cost of cables are going up, but the unit price for the capacities and connectivities is dropping. So how do you diverse your income? How do you diverse your revenue streams? That's something that would keep you awake at night, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's an interesting change, and we need to really adapt it rather than fight it and resist it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Andy. You agree with Hassan and about this challenge? What could be the answer to it?
Absolutely, I do, and I think as I said before, there are in the Americas, across the region where we predominantly operate, there are similarities between the two regions, Middle East and the Americas. There have been challenges for carriers and operators to develop into the region. Even more so, there's been large challenges for content owners and distributors to get into the region too. I think, as Adam, interestingly, Adam mentioned it as well. We often talk about content owners as the big five. Well, there's another 100 that aren't the big five, don't build their own cables, and for the majority of those folks, when we have discussions with them about edge, for those folks, edge is getting into a country. It's not reaching further into a city or into a local municipality. It's getting into a country, especially in the Americas. I think the interesting thing we're seeing, and we're providing this more and more now, is historically cables have been seen as the bridge between countries and continents. What we're seeing more and more now with these the 100 or so other content owners and distributors is we're also the bridge between content owners, media owners, distributors outside the region, and local and regional data center operators inside the region. One of the often forgotten facts is, if you operate a cable system, then you have a local entity, you have a local license, you can deliver services, and you're in most of the main data centers in that in that locale, especially now as we expand out and reach further into the fabric locally. The challenge, might not be exactly the same in the Middle East. One of the big challenges in the Americas is, for content owners, the smaller ones especially, is establishing entities, importing equipment, operating in an environment in that region or city. And that's something we do today. And that's something all cable operators and international network operators do today. So it's not just about, yes, I can bridge you between, Buenos Aires and New York. I can also bridge the gap for you between, the painful experience of trying to establish yourself and the impact on time to market that has. Mm-hmm. Time to market from standing start in most places in the Americas, it's probably 12 to 18 months. We can bridge that, and more content owners are seeing the value in having us help them do that and reduce that time to market to, for example, 3 months, which is a huge difference.
Huge difference.
Especially in the environment we've been in, being able to get your content closer to, whether it's an application like this, whether it's, streaming content, just movies or gaming, getting your content closer to even a country than you were before in 3 months instead of 12 months is a big deal. I think that's where, yes, we provide capacity. Yes, we provide IP services. We all do that. Collectively, though, now we can help bridge that gap between not only the time to market, but the trepidation that most content owners have about being in a specific country or region. Because that's what we do. We do that every day of the week. Mm-hmm. So there's huge value there. And I think more and more content owners are seeing that now. Okay. And of course, yes, we cooperate very closely with the larger guys on the cable systems. Open cables are very important. High fiber counts very important. But and cooperating closely with the larger guys in terms of developing what for most of them are the huge hyper cables between the main data center locations. But then leveraging those huge investments to also enable regional distribution. That's key, especially, we see that in our region. I'm sure Hassan sees it in the Middle East too. It's all well and good to have a huge bridge between two major locations. You got to be able to distribute it when it gets there. And if we can leverage the big cable builds to have on-ramps and off-ramps along the way that enable regional distribution, that's a huge benefit that we can bring along with the larger hyperscalers doing that too.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Talking about investments, I mean, in general, and I know you all, if you're an operator or if you're subsea cable, or you're both, or your data center, you're investing a huge amount of money, and not only over the last couple of years, but probably as well in the future. And in general, what do we see around us? What is coming? And maybe Giuseppe, maybe you can start off. What do we see around us with in regards of in very general with regards of the investment?
Yeah, okay, no, for sure, Eric. But we discussed the demand is growing, in an impressive way. So there are investment on all the infrastructural elements. Each player making its own bet and choice, regionally, product-wise, partner-wise. I can bring some of our experience, for example, where we both invest in submarine, and maybe highlighting one of the points that Jans was touching before, which I think it's very relevant in this specific discussion. So the fact that some data center capability are getting closer and closer to the landing points geographically.
Correct.
Now we have seen this in the Americas initially. This happened in New Jersey, then in Virginia, then in Fortaleza. We are seeing this happening in the Med Basin, where internet is moving southbound now. And so as the conference is about Europe, I think it's important also to focus a little bit on that. We are seeing this, for example, we are actively we announced some time ago this Palermo-Genova cable system that will be extended throughout the Mediterranean. We are adding to that some landing capabilities, what we call landing hub. So it's a small data center, it's a big CLS, but it's managed as a neutral open facility in order to facilitate as much as possible to the cable head, the interconnection. We are doing the same in Tel Aviv. So I'm starting unveiling something that you will see in the coming weeks. And this gives us, let me say, an enriched positioning in the Med, which is one of our strategic positioning focus, where we have already CC Hub, where, by the way, we brought DECIX already 7, 8 years ago to create the gravitational element that was very clearly explained before by my colleagues, adding also to some additional investment we did in the past, still linked to the submarine, which evolved into other enterprise space in Greece and Turkey. So I think that we will see more and more of these, and we see that in some geography things are happening now. What we saw in, let me say, more mature market is happening now in more developing market. And so there is a lot of space to do things and to do business successfully, hopefully.
Thank you. No, so as you mentioned, especially on the Americas, but also in the Mediterranean space, and Andy was talking about, let's say, both the American continents, and Hassan was talking about the Middle East region. Adam, going a little bit to let's say your region, if I may say so, the Asia Pac region. What do you see there? What's happening over there, especially let's see on investments and so on?
Look, Asia's still growing. It's growing faster than the rest of the world. We're still investing. We've got Southern Cross next that will be delivered next year, which is connecting Australia to the US. We were a partner in HKA and PLCN. Both of those have some issues with permitting, but we'll see more growth in our Asian cable systems, no doubt about it. We have a special project looking at Europe to Asia and thinking about what we do there. So we're definitely still an investor in subsea cables. Like I said, it's a very interesting time with some markets having real capacity issues. It's not a quick process to just build a cable. We can't do it in 12 months, unfortunately. So, there has to be some real thought. Obviously, there's a lot of industry focus on making use of the cables that we have, doing more with what we've got. And I think, we've got teams of people looking at all our systems and how we can get more out of them. We probably haven't touched on it. I think Giuseppe mentioned SDN. We do have an SDN product in market. We do have that automation. We do see that growing. It's quite strange because internally we've been trying to automate some of our own processes around our sort of feasibility for 100G in our customer process. And that's actually very difficult. A lot of these things are done by hand and are very, very bespoke when you start looking at the diversity that customers need, and looking at other systems that they may have. It starts to get very complex very quickly, and automating that is a real challenge, and it will be a challenge for the industry going forward.
And it's nice to know, because I think I talk, and some people know this, let's say 28 years I'm in telco, but from day one, I'm talking about the demand, and that it's growing and growing and growing and growing. And I think that finally, after so many years, and you all are senior, you all have your senior role, and many years in your backpack of this, and far better than me the whole industry. But what we see is that the demand is even growing, and I don't think that we can even put a number on it, how big it will grow in the future. And talking about this future, and I quickly wanted to do, let's say, an end round with you gentlemen, because I see that we're heading towards the end of this quite too short session, but we'll do it again, I'll promise you, and then we'll go deeper into some subject expertise if needed. So Jens, talking a little bit about the future, what can we expect, especially in let's say your area, let's say the data center landscape? What can we expect?
little bit wider view, I mean, coming to the topic, you know, what kind of business models are needed. I mean, so if you look at our business model, for instance, right, I think Andy explained it pretty well about companies who need to grow into the country, companies that need to grow into the country, and there is a lot of issues like licenses, etc. You need a legal entity, you know, and this is where what we are a little bit specialized in, right? We have like a, you know, system integrator within the carrier community. So many of our customers are using us because they explicitly don't want to have a legal entity in a specific country. In our case, the region we are covering. So that is, you know, how much it will grow, I don't know, honestly. Will it grow? Yes, for sure. Yeah, it will, year on year. It will, you know, and that's the beauty. Of course, it will allow really, you know, companies to come up with new ideas, with, you know, building their own business models or copying business models, but driving it a little bit further. But you know, the big challenge is for us, like, you know, you can use us as an example, is we have to invest into own assets. It could be, you know, data center, it could be cable, etc., because we as a neutral integrator, you know, we have to bring as more and more own assets into the value chain, because otherwise there is a one day that we are not commercially attractive enough, because we have take any building blocks and we're building that service, but we have to also in this kind of business model, you need to have a certain independence from some suppliers.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Adam, give the world your crystal ball. What do you see in it?
Look, there's loads more things driving demand. You know, if we look at digital transformation in our customers, many businesses are just at the start of that journey. They've got loads of data in their environments. They haven't put it out there yet. So we're just at the start. There's things like IoT coming, 5G. If you look at the satellite industry, they are going to put up a lot of satellites in the next few years.
Huge amount, yeah.
40,000. There's loads of things driving demand here. So that is not going away anytime soon, and the demand that you spoke of. So, you know, we will definitely be working with that. We see more automation. We see AI coming into our business in lots of different ways. And that's really helping us make smart decisions and helping our customers and giving them more control and more information. I think all those things, you know, they'll be at the forefront. And look, there will be new business models. I think the interesting thing is that the market has looked very much at funding the longer term sort of. If you look at a data center, you know, the market is very happy with a long-term sort of 7% return over a 15-year period, and they really believe in that model now. And I think, you know, infrastructure for us is quite well funded, or relatively. Maybe there's too much, and maybe there'll be a bit of a shrinkage again, but that's quite well funded.
It's all in the game. It's all in the game. Thank you, Andy. You're spending so much money, and but what will you see and coming towards us? Can you scope it a little bit, and especially as well, maybe tip a bit on what kind of new business models do you think we can expect?
I think there's you know, we as subsea operators, or you know, as part of our portfolio as a subsea operator, and Adam touched on it a little earlier, we kind of see both ends of the demand scale. So, you know, as I mentioned earlier, we're working closely with lots and lots of, you know, not only the large hyperscalers, but then the kind of, you know, the wider community of content owners. Right. There's some really interesting business models there in terms of, you know, infrastructure as a service. We're providing that now across the region, and that's very new, especially in the Americas. That's very new, but it's hugely attractive for content owners and operators trying to get into the market. So infrastructure as a service is going to be a really unique, I think, model going forward for the next couple of years. But like I said, I think we have a rather unique position as subsea cable
Yes.
operators. We see the demand side, and then we're always looking at the supply side. I think there's a couple of rather unique challenges we've got right now. And as those of us that build cables know, vessel availability, the amount of cables being built. I mean, we're looking at, you know, a new transatlantic cable, at least one every 2 years for the next probably 10 to 15 years.
It's huge.
It's huge. Same
Huge.
sort of activity in the Pacific, same sort of activity in the Middle East, and up and down the Americas coasts too. If you're looking to do outside of those already planned deployments, you're looking to do anything regionally right now, you're looking at probably a 3-year wait to get a vessel.
To get a vessel.
To get a vessel, and to get a slot, and to get manufacturing done. And as you know, as we mentioned earlier, just this year, copper and steel pricing has almost doubled. Now terrestrial fiber, not much of a big deal, copper and steel. Subsea fiber, fundamental to what we do. So we've seen probably just this year 10 to 15% increase in system prices, whilst we've seen a 15 to 20% decrease in revenue prices.
Yeah.
So that's a challenge for us. I think one point, and Jens kind of touched on it, a similar point, is all of our cable ships, all the ships that we use today burn oil fuel. It's probably the nastiest fuel you can use.
Yeah.
Recently was the first announcement of the first, call it green cable ship.
Yes.
But there are entire fleets out there that over the next probably short number of years are going to come more and more under scrutiny in terms of they need to be either replaced or refurbished, and it's really difficult to refurbish the engine in a cable ship. So that 3-year wait, that may actually, if we're not really careful, that could actually be extrapolated even further, because the cable ship owners are going to have to be investing huge amounts of money to make their fleets more green and be compliant with either local, national, or international environmental requirements. So we see both ends. We're always looking, we look, on the pure capacity side, we plan, all of us plan 12 to 18 months out in terms of lighting what we've got. On the services side, 6 to 12 months. On the cable side, we're looking 5 to 10 years out and looking at, okay, how do we keep rolling out this more and more capacity that we need? Because if we don't build cables, nobody's building the internet, right?
No. There you go. Thank you. Giuseppe, what is your take on the future?
No, I would definitely, let me say, agree with Andy highlighting this supply chain issue on the submarine as a key topic of this discussion, which I would add also the geopolitical, let me say, issues on the background, which is somehow additionally limiting the production capability, because some potential vendors are, let me say, not so welcome in some geographies. So this makes the whole thing even more complex without even entering, because we will need another hour into the geopolitics of then operating and laying a cable. So we will see a lot of interesting stuff, and we will see definitely more and more of this infrastructure deployed because of the demand that you clearly, all of us is stating.
Thank you. Hassan, enlighten us with some famous last words, please, about the future. Well, what can we expect? But what do you see on business models in, whatever? Tell us.
I agree with everything was said by the gentleman here. Our region specifically, I'm talking about the Middle East and the Arabian Gulf. Bahrain is located inside the Gulf. That makes it a very challenging case to extend cables, from the Gulf of Oman inside the Gulf and build that branch. Mainly because the nature of the water, shallow water, and a lot of the gas pipe crossing and all of these things. Building a business case for an infrastructure project is always, a big challenge for, I think, all of us. It's not like I'll just put up a 5G tower and I just hook up 10 consumers and they will consume the bandwidth and I'll get immediate return. Now, how would you convince your management, I need X amount of millions to build a branch into the Gulf, and how much money I'm gonna give you back? It's a very challenging business case. So our job is to educate, the stakeholders that, it's not a purely consumer business case that I'm coming to ask money for. What you also see in this region, at least, is that the change in mindset of the telecom providers, with the rise of IoT, real-time data processing and decision making. I can see some good hype around that in this region, at least. So all in all, nobody can predict how much the data is going to grow. We also the pandemic effect on our business. The growth we have, at least I can speak about our company, was tremendous. People sitting at home. Our consumer business unit started offering free stuff, free Netflix, free streaming, unlimited data, and we as an infrastructure provider had to manage this situation and give them more capacities and more. And with the shortage in capacities, and Andy mentioned something very beautiful. How many submarine cable deployment companies do we have? A handful, 2, 3, 4. And how many projects do we have going around the world? So how do you attract them to do your project and not do the bigger one that, for example, that's crossing the Atlantic? All these elements create a very challenging environment, but we need to see how to address them. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be fun, I would say.
Okay, and with these words, I would like to wrap it up, gentlemen. I would like to thank first of all you, Hassan, for your keynote presentation, and of course, Batelco sponsoring this webinar session. Gentlemen, Adam, Jens, Andy, and Giuseppe, big thanks and honor to have you on this panel, and with such an expertise. I hope that you out there, audience, and here the audience are hopefully a step further ahead with a bit more knowledge about data centers and subsea cables and whatever we do. So, gentlemen, I would like to thank you so much for this panel session. I wish you all the best, all the health, stay safe, and for the audience out there, if you want to reach out to the guys, they're always happy to answer any questions you have. So for me, it's ciao for now, and everybody stay tuned, because we are here live at the GCCM 2021 Europe session. So more from us to come. And again, thank you so much. Thank you for listening in and watching us, and here the audience. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Eric. Dear all, we are at the end of this webinar session, and I would like to thank our keynote speaker Hassan for his interesting presentation, but our panelists for sharing the knowledge, and of course our audience for participating and listening. This panel will be soon available to watch on CC Media portal. We are looking forward to welcoming you in our both physical and virtual events this year. For more information, visit our events portal. If you're interested in supporting and sponsoring one of our future branded webinars, contact CC team. Also, for all updates and fresh content, follow us on our 4 social media channels. Subscribe to our Telegram news channel to receive exclusive invitations to CC-Webinar.live events. Stay safe and healthy. Goodbye.